Being real is your brand's biggest asset. Authenticity, not perfection, is what truly connects with people and drives success. I learned this the hard way, and it's actually what skyrocketed my photography business. Embrace your true self and watch your brand stand out. Before we dive into this episode, I want to ask you this question. Do you struggle connecting with the right people? Maybe you're putting yourself out there, but it feels like that your message just isn't landing. They're crickets. And I get that. And that's why I created a free guide just for you. The ultimate blueprint to discover and engage your target audience. Now, it's here to help you figure out who you're really speaking to. See, knowing your target audience just isn't a catchphrase. It's the foundation of a successful personal brand, and it took me a long time to figure that one out. When you're clear on who you're serving, every piece of content you create resonates deeper, and your brand starts to attract the right people. Now, are you ready to make that first connection bigger and better? Download my free guide at sandy-adams.com/audience. Hi, welcome back to the Sandy Adams Show. This is where we talk about life, business, and everything in between. Today, I want to talk about how authenticity attracts success, how being real can actually help you build your personal brand. You've probably heard this before, people telling you, be real, be authentic. But what does that really mean when you're struggling to build a personal brand? You might be trying to stand out in a crowded market, to make a name for yourself, to show the world what you have to offer. But it feels so overwhelming. I've been there. You might wonder, how can being authentic, how can showing my true self possibly help me succeed when it feels like I need to be perfect to get noticed? The other thing is, in a carefully curated world, how can we use our realness to really attract people? Aren't people attracted by the perfect sales pitch, the perfect website, the perfect video, the perfectly curated images? But here's the thing. Authenticity is actually your secret weapon. You see, in the world of all of those carefully curated images and the success stories that sound so perfect, people actually crave realness. See, people are drawn to the unfiltered, the honest version of you. If you look back at when the reality shows kind of started, people loved them because they were more real than a lot or all of the TV shows. You think about Jerry Springer. Why did his show get so much attention? Because it was for the most part unscripted, although you find out later people were set up, obviously. Like, why would you go on a show? I digress. Okay, but people are they're drawn to that version of you. It builds trust and ultimately it attracts success. See, it's tempting for us to think to build a successful brand, we need to have all the answers. We never fail and we must always present ourselves as the expert. But the truth is, people connect with your struggles as much as they do with your successes. In fact, your struggles, for the most part, inspires people, uplifts people, gets people fired up. Your journey, complete with its ups and its downs, is what makes your brand so compelling, or what can make your brand so compelling. Authenticity is actually grit. See, building a personal brand just isn't about the aesthetics or the content strategies. It's about showing up and consistently as who you are, and that takes a lot of grit. Here in Memphis, grit is kind of the name of the game. We are all gritty. We're known for grit and grind. But building your brand on who you are authentically does take a lot of grit. It's probably easier to go online and try to have a perceived perfect image, right? But what I've learned is that grit isn't just about the perseverance. It's about being true to yourself, even when things get hard. It's about being honest with your audience, not only when things are going well, but also when you're facing challenges. I actually go back and forth. I go back and forth between sharing uplifting content and also giving people a glimpse into what my struggles have been. When I realized for the very first time how powerful this can be, sharing your failures, your down times, your ugliness, only with what you're comfortable with. I'm going to say that right now. Let me just put an asterisk by that, okay? It's only what you're comfortable sharing. And before you say, well, I don't want to share anything that's not perfect, hear me out, okay? Back in 2018, I had just gone through, my mother had passed away. I'd gone through the end of a really long, painful relationship. I was starting completely over. I was still in Houston. I was by myself and I didn't have any family. I started working for a nonprofit and I was teaching job search to mid-level professionals. I was coaching them. Now, in the beginning, I thought I was going to just be teaching job search. But what I quickly realized was I was teaching motivation. I was teaching self-confidence. I was teaching people how to show up every day, resilience, build their resilience. And one day I remember I'm standing in front of everybody and I'm talking and I'm teaching them about how to go and, update your LinkedIn profile and how to reach out to people. I mean, these people were incredibly educated, very experienced, but that doesn't always mean in the real world you know what to do, right? So here I am standing in front of them and one lady is talking about how she's just like at her wit's end. She's like, I have no money. I'm about to lose my apartment. I've gone through a divorce. I've got 2 kids. I can barely get out of bed every day. And at that moment, without thinking, I started sharing a story that was really only a year old. I started sharing a story about how the day I woke up and fully realized that my entire future had gone poof. I had no future. Everything, like my tomorrow didn't exist. And there I was with 2 dogs and a cat and no steady job. And I had to put my life back together. And as I stood there in front of her, I said, if there's anything that you can get out of this story, it's that I persevered. Okay? I got through it. I'm here standing in front of you saying it is possible to move on, to find yourself, to take one day at a time. And then after class, so many people came up to me and thanked me for sharing. Because as I'm standing here right now, or you're listening to me, I want to make sure that my hair is all in place, although it really drives me crazy sometimes. But I digress. I'm standing here in front of you, and the image that you see of me does not define my whole being. It's easy to sit here and say, she's got everything going perfect, right? But that's far from true. And what I realized in that moment where I was listening to these men and women tell me, thank you for sharing such a hard part of my life, that it gave them hope. Now, I had told my sister about what I did, and she's like, oh, how could you do that? Like, that's getting really personal. I don't know if I could do that. Now, I don't go out and share that story all of the time. There are times and places like right now where it serves, I want to say, a purpose. But it is serving a purpose. I'm telling the story to connect with my audience, but also to encourage everybody who's watching or listening that life is not a single moment. You are not defined by a single moment. And so sharing your struggles actually helps you put them into perspective. And it helps the people you're talking to. It inspires them. It gives them hope. And it allows them to see you in a 3-dimensional view as opposed to what they see at that very moment. when you're trying to look your best, when you're trying to talk your best, okay? So it is about what you're comfortable sharing. And what I always try to coach people with is think about your biggest struggle, right? Think about the biggest struggle that you've gone through. Because typically Roy Vaden, who is a huge speaker, speaks all over the world, has a brand building business for very rich celebrities. He actually says that you are destined to teach or coach or work with the best version of who you once were. I'm probably just totally messing this up, but you are best suited to talk about and talk to the person that you once were, right? So sharing stories about your personal struggle, what you've gone through, what you feel passionate about is actually beneficial to your audience, and it helps build that brand because there's a story there, and it also helps you connect to your audience. So here is what I've come to believe that gritty, authentic people have in common. 1, they believe the ability to learn isn't fixed. I talk about this all the time. It's called growth mindset. I'm a firm believer in growth mindset. If you have a fixed mindset where you don't think anything can get better, or you don't think that you can learn that skill, or you're never going to change, it's never going to allow you to change because that mindset is keeping you down. A growth mindset, this is where growth comes from effort, from trying, from failing and trying again. You don't have to have it all figured out from the start. Gosh, no one does, right? If you think about Thomas Edison, he tried electricity, I think 99 times. You think about Orville and Wilbur Wright and how they tried to get the plane off the ground, right? Oh, no pun intended there. How they tried to get the plane up. They didn't do it on the first time. Heck, when we were trying to get to the moon, we didn't do it on the first time. No one starts from perfect. Now, number 2 is they embrace their failure as a part of their journey. See, failure isn't a sign that you're not cut out for success. No, it's a stepping stone on the way to success. When you acknowledge that failure isn't the end, you're more likely to keep going. Number 3 is they believe change is always possible. This kind of goes back to the growth mindset. No matter where you are right now, no matter how far you feel from your goals, change is within reach. The most authentic brands evolve with time, and so will you. One of the best stories is Netflix. Now, almost everyone, I imagine, has Netflix, right? Do you remember when it started out as a DVD they mailed to you in a little sleeve? You could go online, you could pick out up to 3 movies. They'd mail you physically in the mail 3 DVDs or CDs or whatever they were called back then. You could watch them, and as you mailed each one back, like you physically had to mail them back with the post office, as you mailed each one back, they would send you the next movie on your list. So this was Blockbuster going away, Netflix mailing things out, okay? Go and look. There is a documentary on how Netflix got started with a subscription membership type of business. And this was really the big start of membership economy. It's fascinating because what you see now is they have multi-million-dollar movies being produced, okay? They sat in their cars. When they were first deciding this, they sat in their cars and they would mail the DVDs to see how long the estimated time was for the DVDs to arrive where they were going to go. I think they mailed them to themselves, okay? Now, number 4 is they don't let setbacks define them. Setbacks are expected, right? Missteps are expected. They're part of the process. When you anticipate challenges and stay committed to working around them, you become unstoppable. It's those people that come up against a roadblock or a setback is experienced and they stop. Don't let a little setback stop you. Figure out how to go around it. Don't let a tree across the road. You figure out how to go around it. I'll give you a great story as an example for this. Back in 2000 and I don't know, 15, 14, 13, I was living in Houston. We had a really bad storm that came through. I think this was Hurricane Rita, right after Katrina. Or actually right before Katrina. It doesn't matter. Anyway, 2.5 million people had to evacuate Houston. The main interstate going northbound to Austin, Texas, or northbound to Dallas, Texas. It had, I think, up to 5 lanes going one way and 5 lanes going the other way. During hurricane evacuations, those type of roads all go one way, the direction they want you to evacuate, okay? 2.5 million people got on that interstate in Houston and sat there. Because there becomes a bottleneck. You go from 10 lanes going northbound, you get to Houston City and going through downtown, and it becomes, I think, 2 to 3 lanes, okay? They're still going northbound, but then as you move northward, it becomes, I think, 2 to 3 lanes on each side. So you see how it's like a funnel. You go in at the widest part, and then it narrows as you're going northbound. I am not joking and not exaggerating. It took people 48 plus hours to get from Houston, Texas to Dallas, Texas. The normal time is 3 to 4 hours. Now, for us, we had to evacuate. I'm from the country, and maybe that's part of that grit inside of me. We saw that there were all those people, traffic was not moving, and we were headed to Austin. We're just going to take the back roads. So we just kept taking the back roads. We'd come up against a roadblock that said, you got to detour this way. And we just kept going west, turning north, going west, turning north. Took us 5 hours to get to Austin, Texas with the back roads. Normally it was a 4-hour trip. We had people that we knew still sitting on the interstate. So don't let setbacks or roadblocks stop you. Find a different way. Now, number 5 is they finish what they start. Authenticity means seeing things through, even when it's tough. It's about staying the course and not giving up on your vision. So why does authenticity attract success? Think about the people you follow, the brands that you love. What draws you to them? Chances are it's not just their appearance that appears perfect or their messaging that's written perfect. It's probably their story. It's the way they've shown up or they show up daily by being real, letting you in on their journey. Some of the biggest solopreneurs right now, those influencers, they actually spend the day, like every morning. I know this one lady, she starts every day off doing an Instagram live while she puts her makeup on. People, I don't know if I could do that. Right? But authenticity attracts success because it builds those connections. So she has a Q&A and she just talks about what's on her mind and whatever, 30 minutes to an hour Instagram live every morning. She gets ready with all of her followers. When you're open, now I'm not saying you have to do that. I could never do that. When you're open about your experiences, about people relate to you then. They see themselves in your struggles and in your successes. They trust you because they know you're not just selling them a dream. You're actually sharing your reality. Now, let's talk about trust, right? That's the foundation of any successful brand. When people trust you, they're more likely to follow you. They're more likely to support you, and they're more likely to invest in what you have to offer. I love to say, see, know, like, and trust. See, know, like, and trust. Yes. The more people see you, the more they like you. No. See, know, like, and trust. The more people see you, the more they know you. The more they come to know you, the more they like you. The more they like you, the more they trust you. Trust is where the magic happens. See, that's why I'm not even going to edit some of the parts that I've messed up on because, hey, I want to get through this and get it out because you guys need to hear what I have to say right now. So let's get real with your brand. So how do you actually build a brand on authenticity? Here are a few ways to start. So I'm going to go through the list and then we'll go back and talk about each one. So number 1, tell your story. Number 2, embrace imperfection. Number 3, stay consistent. Number 4, engage with your audience. Now, let's go back and start with tell your story. I've been talking about this. Share the real you, the wins and the losses. Let people in on your journey. I started following this photographer back in 2010 because she was talking about how she was building her photography business. There is a company right now called ConvertKit. They're kind of like MailChimp, the email marketing companies. So it's called ConvertKit. They're actually rebranding to just Kit, I think. They're actually doing this rebranding in public. They're actually going through the process of the rebrand in public instead of just doing the rebrand and then all of a sudden putting it out. Woof. Here we go. Everything's new now. They're actually doing, you can follow along. Roy Vaden, the guy I was talking about a little bit earlier. He's actually writing one of his new books. He's writing it in real time. He actually does he streams live into several platforms. I don't know if he's doing this every single day, but y'all got to be really bored if y'all going to sit there and watch him write a book. Literally, he is writing his book. Now, he's talking a little bit. I've tuned in a couple of times. He's actually talking about, how he's going through the thought process. But there was some minutes where he wasn't saying anything. He's just like typing. I mean, that's some serious, but it goes back to the reality show. You're seeing how the process works, right? He's taking you along on the journey, right? Letting you know that it's not like I am sitting in bed every morning with my cup of tea and I'll write in my journal for a little while and then poof, my journal becomes a book. No, it's not like that. There are boring times. When people are building brands, writing books, doing movies, whatever, there are times that are really, really boring, okay? There are days, the days I create content are the most boring days ever. I literally don't put on makeup, put my hair up in a bun. I sit around all day long writing and creating content. People call me like, what have you done all day? Worked on the computer. That's what I say. Like, it's not exciting, but that's the reality of business, okay? Especially when you're in this type of space. So it's, remember that it's about the journey and it's about, letting people see that. Now, let's talk about number 2, embrace imperfection. You don't have to have it all together. Show up even when things aren't perfect. Authenticity is not about being flawless. It's about being real. When you let go of that need to be perfect, you allow your true self to shine through. Okay? Number 3 is stay consistent. See, authenticity isn't a one-time thing. It's not about, I'm going to go and I'll show that I don't have any makeup on today, but then you're never, ever going to see me like that ever again. And people don't freak out. I'm not saying you have to go online without your makeup on. I'm not saying that. But you have to be consistent with it, okay? You have to be true to your values and your message, even as your brand evolves. Now, number 4, engage with your audience. Authenticity goes both ways. It's a two-way street. It's not about just you. sharing your story. It's about connecting with your audience's stories as well. It's about listening to them, engaging with them, and building that community around those shared experiences. Why does this all matter for your success? So, if you're struggling to build a personal brand, it can be easy to get caught up in everything you don't have. Let me tell you, I can understand that. When I started my photography business, I didn't really have the luxury to get all caught up in what I didn't have because I didn't have the money. I had one camera and one lens, no studio, no clients, no kids in school to go and market at those schools. I had nothing, but I had my grit and hustle. So you might think that you lack the time, the money, or the resources to really make it work. But here's the truth. Success doesn't come from having everything. It doesn't. It comes from showing up as who you are, using what you have, and being real with your audience. I started out with that one camera, one lens, and the wide open outdoors. I did. And I made it work. Now, yes, there were people that called me and I'm like, I only do outdoor shoots and I'm in Houston. And they're like, oh no. I had one lady said, no, my child is not going to sweat. Okay. But I had somebody else who called me and said, my daughter wants a shoot just like that. It's 100 degrees outside. And the mom said, you know what? I'll keep my car running and have the AC on and she can pop in and out. The girl did not complain either because they wanted what I was selling and I was being real. They were getting a real experience. Because let me tell you, if you think modeling for those magazine covers is fun, you are crazy. But that was the experience I was offering. And I was just real with people. You have to show up. You have to let people see the process. See the good, bad, and ugly. I even said a couple of years ago, I even posted the first wedding I ever shot. I was ever paid to shoot. Oh, let me tell you, I messed that up. First time I was ever using a flash that you actually add to your camera, and it had batteries, and I didn't realize that the batteries, if you shot really quickly, it would not have time for the batteries to recharge. It drained the batteries within 10 minutes. And I'm shooting inside of a house in the evening, okay? I was freaking out, and I did not bring any batteries with me. Never again. That was a lesson I learned really well, okay? But I did a blog post and posted those pictures. I figured out how to make those pictures work. Okay. And I talked about that. I showed those pictures. Now, this was 10 years later, and I could have been really embarrassed about it. But I will tell you, there's probably not a single person who started their photography career that did not have any type of issues. Okay. You're just being real. Now, people can say, oh, I don't want people to think that I'm stupid and don't know what I'm doing. That was 10 years ago. Look at me now, right? It wasn't yesterday. It was 10 years ago. When you're authentic, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be willing to share your journey with others. People will follow you, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. They'll connect with your authenticity, and that connection will drive your success. Now, my photo shoot era probably did not pertain to that specific wording that I just said, okay? Because I went off script just a little bit. And see, right now, I'm being real with you. Okay, let's recap what we've learned and discussed in this episode. What do gritty, authentic people have in common? Here are 5 common characteristics. 1, they believe the ability to learn isn't fixed. 2, they embrace failure as part of the journey. Number 3, they believe that change is always possible. Number 4, they don't let their setbacks define them. And 5, they finish what they start. Now, let's talk about 4 ways that you can build a brand using authenticity, right? Number 1, tell your story. Number 2, embrace imperfection. Nobody wants to see somebody that's perfect. And number 3, stay consistent. Number 4, engage with your audience. That's really important. So now, take everything that you've learned today and put this into practice, even if it's 1 or 2 steps per week. I want you to make the decision to succeed, not by being someone that you're not, but by embracing who you are right now. Let go of the need for perfection, yes, and instead focus on being authentic. Show up with that grit, tell your story, and watch how the realness attracts the success you've been striving for. Thank you so much for watching and listening to The Sandy Adams Show. Remember, you are capable of wild successes when you become bold enough to be your true self. I want to encourage each of you to try one action this week and build up your self-confidence and continue doing that each and every week. Now, if you would be so kind as to leave a review, I would be honored, and I would love to read it in a future upcoming episode. Thank you so much for tuning in today to The Sandy Adams Show.